Thank you for joining us on At Issue, and we're very pleased to be talking about the city of Bloomington, its past and its future, because we are going to be talking to the retiring mayor of the city of Bloomington. Steve Stockton, after 8 years, is going to step aside and make room for one of three candidates to be the new mayor.
That's correct. The elections are coming up here in just a few weeks.
So we do want to talk about the future to the extent that you can, because you won't be on the council any longer. But before we talk about the past, just a little bit about yourself. You came out of State Farm.
Yes, I left State Farm with an early retirement at the end of 2004. I told people at the time I was retiring with the intention of running for mayor of Bloomington, and the people did elect me in April of 2005.
And you're finishing your second term.
That's correct.
But public life wasn't new to you. You were on various commissions, Liquor Commission amongst others.
Liquor, Police and Fire, Downtown Commission, yes.
Mm-hmm. So stepping into the mayor's role wasn't a surprise to you?
Well, I worked pretty closely with a couple of mayors, Mayor Buchanan, Mayor Smart. I ran re-election campaigns for them. We used to sit in the mayor's office and talk a lot about what was going on, and I'd put in my 2 cents worth.
I want to talk some specifics, but first, you're a low-profile kind of guy. I don't think people look to low-profile individuals as mayors. How do you think your personality fit in with being mayor?
Well, I've learned I'm not a politician. Some of the things that I find go along with politics, I really don't like. I'm more of a businessman. I spent 32 years at State Farm. I'm a lawyer and a CPA, and I tend to look at things more like a business person would. I think that was an advantage during some of the fiscal problems that we had at the city of Bloomington.
Well, let's talk about that, because one of the early things you did was you said, we need a city manager who has financial expertise. The city was not in the best of financial condition back in that time, and that led to the hiring of David Hales.
Yeah, when I first came in as mayor, the council had already made decisions to embark on a lot of projects, build the new Coliseum, take over and renovate the Bloomington Center for the Performing Arts, take over the government center for government offices, develop a separate dispatching center for the city of Bloomington. All those things together were going to cost the city budget an extra $6 or $7 million a year. So the first problem was, how are we going to pay for that? The second problem was that people were cynical over the Coliseum. There was quite a disagreement in the city, similar to what happened earlier here in Peoria, except that people had voted 2-1 not to build the Coliseum, and the city council went ahead and did it anyway. Now, by the time I got to be mayor, the die had been cast, and I kept telling people, look, the decision's been made. Maybe I wouldn't have voted that way, but we have to make this work now. And by and large, people have gone along with that. And the Coliseum has actually added quite a bit to the life in the city, but at an expense. We had the recession coming on. About the time that the recession was beginning, we had already started an early retirement plan. We had 70 or 80 people take up that offer, and we reduced the city payrolls by that, but we knew we needed to do more. So we decided to, since our city manager was taking advantage of the retirement plan, we decided to go out and look for a new city manager. Tom Hamilton had been an excellent planner, and he was great to have around when the city was growing by leaps and bounds, but growth was slowing down, and we could see the writing on the wall that financially there were some challenges. So our number one request of a city manager was financial expertise, and we found David Hales, who had both been a city manager and a finance director in other cities.
You mentioned the Center for the Performing Arts. You mentioned U.S. Cellular Coliseum. And in describing them, you said they've brought a lot to the city, but at a cost. The subsidizing of that by city coffers is somewhere north of $3 million.
Yeah, closer to 4.
And do you still balance that out? You say that they've brought enough to the community that it's worth the $4 million?
Well, it's difficult to, it's like the ads, what's cost and what's priceless. They're quality of life enhancements. The question is, you can do a lot of things for your community because the mission of the city is to optimize the quality of life for its residents, but at a reasonable cost. So how do you balance those two things? The decision was made when I came in as mayor, so I by and large said, okay, I've been dealt these cards, now let's make it work. We set out goals for the Coliseum. Entertain as many people as possible, meet your operating expenses, and we also asked them to bring some extra benefits. For example, you get hockey players out in schools. You can't do that if you don't have a hockey team. You can't have a hockey team if you don't have a hockey arena.
And to be clear, and I think the debt service is about almost $2 million on U.S. Cellular, 1.9 million, somewhere in that range.
Right.
And so when we reference the situation where you're spending that kind of money, the debt service and the operating budget are two different things with U.S. Cellular.
Right. And the debt service, we're really buying the Coliseum. It's like a home mortgage. So we're going to have an asset. But what we do ask the Coliseum to do as much as possible, cover their annual operating expenses. Let's break even. And if possible, if you can make a little profit, we can put that toward the mortgage.
Bond rating is up for the city?
The city's bond rating is up. We're AA plus with, they took away the negative outlook that we had for a while during the recession. We're one step away from AAA, which is as high as you can go.
Let's talk about some financial pitfalls that may exist. The governor is throwing around some numbers. The Municipal League is throwing out different numbers in terms of how much money the city of Bloomington might not get from the state of Illinois. I don't know what that number is going to be, 400,000, 800,000. What kind of concern does that give you?
Well, this has been tossed about before, and each time we've gone to our legislators, as have other cities, and say, look, an income tax was put in. At the time it was sold, it was said, we're going to share this money with our cities. To come back now, especially after increasing the income tax and not giving any of the money to the cities, I think is unfair. So we're going to fight for that money. Now, I've heard numbers up to $11.50 per citizen on the distributive fund. There could be some other amounts on top of that. At the same time, by the way, we're facing potential cuts in some federal funds like our community development block grants.
Let's continue along the money route. You put in a temporary tax. If I recall, in 2008, the sales tax increase, a quarter cent, was temporary. Is that correct?
It is scheduled to expire in 2015. That was to finance our downtown ventures.
And where do you stand on, has that filled the bill and you don't need it anymore? And I know you don't even have a vote now, do you, unless there's a tie?
That's correct.
But looking to the future.
I think that as long as we're subsidizing the Coliseum and the Center for the Performing Arts, there's going to be a need for that tax. We could go back and we have reduced, this year we actually reduced our property taxes. We could go back and try to reduce property taxes, or we could reduce sales taxes. Some candidates are saying, well, we'll take that off. If we're going to keep something, I would rather keep a sales tax because it's paid for more broadly, not just by residents. Plus, a property tax runs counter, it makes it more difficult for people to keep their homes. If there's one thing a city needs to do, it's to preserve neighborhoods and to do everything you can to preserve home ownership.
Let's talk about planning. You had a list of things that you wanted to accomplish in terms of developing master plans for a variety of things. Some of those were implemented, some not. The zoo and parks, roadways are examples of things that you were able to accomplish successfully, but some things not. What about downtown?
Well, let me speak to your first comment first. We have undertaken master plans for sewer, water, parks, zoos, roads, pensions, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a moment here.
That's on the list.
The idea is to know what we're facing in the future. So we're sending cameras through sewers, trying to gauge which might fail and so on, so that we know here's how we have to prioritize, here's what we need to do first, and here's how we balance water versus sewer expenditures, and so on. There was a downtown plan actually done a little bit over 2 years ago that was received by the City Council but never adopted. It contains a number of things, some of which were very controversial. Some changes in the highway alignment around the edge of the city, a proposal to use form-based code zoning downtown brought in a lot of negative comments, especially from groups that are opposed to that type of thing. We are right now, and we may not get this done before I'm out of office, but we've asked the Regional Planning Commission to help us look at what things would not be objectionable, because I think that 90% of what was in that plan, everybody's going to say, oh, that's great, I'd vote for that. So we're trying to take out the things that are controversial and move forward with the things that are there. And I would think within the next month, 2 or 3, somewhere in that time frame, that'll be ready to come back before the council. It may be under a new mayor.
Am I sensing compromise might be involved here?
That's a word I've come to learn very well.
Well, let's talk about pensions. Might as well dive in. Now, the city of Bloomington is not in the strait that the state of Illinois finds itself in, but your costs are, well, and in every other city in Illinois, are going up and up, much of it outside of your control.
Yeah, there's really 3 things that define pension liability for a city. The first is the benefits that are being awarded. You know, how rich are the benefits? The legislature pretty much decides for us and says, here's the benefits you're going to give. And they've been pretty liberal in the past in saying, cities, you will give people this, you'll give people that. And that's been part of our problem. The second thing is the way the money is invested. The city has no control over that. In the case of the IMRF, that's run by the state. In the case of our other 2 pension funds, the police and fire pension funds, we have local investment committees, but the city has 1 person on that. It's controlled more by the active members and the retirees themselves. One of the problems with investments was during the recession, when the stock market plummeted, the investments in these funds plummeted. And when the investments go down, ultimately, because it's a defined benefit plan, it's left up to the taxpayers to pay. And that's what's given us some of these funding ratios down in the 50s and 60s. They plummeted. Some of those, we were in the 80s before the stock market collapsed. The last thing is the number of employees on the plan, and the city has absolute control over that. We know, if we hire an employee, it's not just the direct salary, it's also the benefits we have to figure in.
So where are you right now in terms of your amount of money toward future liabilities?
We are meeting the required minimum set by the state. In fact, in some years, we've actually gone out and put extra money in. However, we don't think that's going to be enough to really get ahead of the game. And I strongly believe that if we promise something to people, we need to deliver it. Now, I'm not saying that we need to continue that in the future. proactively, we may have to make some cuts or at least not keep adding things onto the pension plan. We've hired an actuary. The actuary is looking at all three plans and helping us to devise a funding mechanism that will allow us to get to 90 or even 100% funding sooner rather than later. And that's going to require more money than we've been putting in.
As you look at city services, are you balancing, or maybe balance isn't the right word, are you looking at alternatives in providing those services that might be more effective and or more efficient?
Yeah, there's a program we've called Managed Competition. And some people see that as a synonym for outsourcing. It really isn't. What managed competition is constantly looking at what the city does, should the city be doing it? Secondly, if we should be doing it, how efficiently are we doing it? If we find that we're doing something less efficiently than could be done by an outside contractor, for example, our first task is to go to our employees and say, we need to find better ways to do this. Do you have some ideas? And in some cases, they may come back and say, yeah, we could do this, but in order to do this, we need some more equipment. And the city then has to work as a partner with those employees. You know, we buy the equipment, they implement it, and we find ourselves more efficient. If we can't find a way internally to do something as efficiently as somebody could on the outside, then as stewards of tax dollars, we really have to look at, should we be bringing somebody in from the outside to do this more efficiently? So there is a possibility that that process could lead to outsourcing, but only after we've worked with our employees to try to make it more efficient. Now, it can also work the other way. Managed competition can, in fact, bring things in. A good example was a few years back, we had an outside firm doing our paramedic services. It was very inefficient. They were losing $1 million a year, in part because we had dual response. We had 2 ambulances showing up to most calls, and you can imagine that's inefficient. So we tackled that and said, how could we do this better? We looked at some other firms, including AMT, that does Peoria, and said, give us some bids. Ultimately, though, we decided that we could do it most efficiently with our firefighters within the city. So managed competition, although we didn't call it that back then, actually brought something that had been handled outside, outsourced, back in to the city. And the reason that works is because many of our firefighters aren't out fighting fires as much as they used to. They're sitting around the station, so why not utilize them? We bought all the new ambulance equipment for the city, equipped it. We hired paramedics, expanded the fire department greatly with that. And we also have a program where every firefighter eventually will be a paramedic.
As I look back at your 8 years as mayor, I can divide it into 2 challenges. And the dividing line, of course, no surprise to anybody, the downturn in the economy. As you look back, do you see a change in the way you managed or led the city because of the downturn? And how would you describe that? How did it work out?
Well, we were fortunate in that prior to the real plummet in 2008, we were already doing some things. We were reducing the number of employees with the early retirement plan and so on because of the challenges with the Coliseum and the other projects, figuring out how to pay for that. So we had a bit of a head start. Ultimately, we reduced out of 700 and some employees, we reduced the number of city employees by 131, 132, right in there. Now we've hired a few of those back. For example, building inspectors during the recession. We didn't need as many building inspectors because there weren't buildings going up. Now that the economy is coming back in Bloomington, we have construction again. We need some of those inspectors back. We also are planning to hire additional firemen, police officers, and so on.
Let's talk a little bit about and I know in the past when you've been on the show, you've always talked about neighborhoods because you believe the strength of the city is in the neighborhoods. How important are neighborhoods to the health of Bloomington, and what have you done as mayor to make sure that the neighborhoods are healthy?
My very first national mayor's meeting, I'd been a mayor a month or two, and I asked some long-term mayors, if you were to give one piece of advice to a new mayor, what would that be? And the answer was, protect your neighborhoods, protect your housing stock. So we have done some things. For example, our community and problem-oriented policing programs have been beefed up. Our police chief meets on a regular basis with anybody that wants to come in and discuss problems in their neighborhood. You know, how could we do better? We're concentrating our resources as problems emerge. We move resources very quickly to those areas. In terms of infill, the city is buying properties that are beyond hope. We're taking down the home, for example, and we're giving the property to partnership with other organizations, chiefly Habitat for Humanity. We give them lots, and they build a new home on that. We're also have loan programs, including forgiveness for people that improve their own homes. There are many people in Bloomington I've talked to that say, we really want to stay in this neighborhood. I grew up here. I'd like to raise my family here now. And we've got the money. Should we put money into our home, or is this neighborhood going to go downhill? We have to make sure that people have confidence. And seeing a new home go up down the street, seeing people rehab their homes, seeing their street paved, seeing police cars going up and down the street protecting law and order and so on, gives people that confidence to say, I want to stay here, I have the money, and I'm going to stay in this neighborhood because I have confidence in my neighborhood.
You've been most kind to visit the At Issue set over the last 8 years as mayor, and we appreciate it here. And I hope that the citizens of Bloomington appreciate it as well. So I'm going to give you an opportunity, and what I assume will be your last appearance on this show as mayor, to address the citizens as to how you look back at the 8 years. But I'd also like you to offer up to the citizens what one thing you'd like to see happen in Bloomington in the future.
Okay, first of all, I have been very fortunate to have had the trust of the citizens for 8 years going through a re-election. It's been mostly what I expected.
Really? Really?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't count on a recession, and the cynicism that came from some people over the Coliseum issue extended over to me and the new council, even though we hadn't made that vote. So we have a lot more people that say we can't trust the city. So we've had to deal with that. But I would do this again. It's been 8 years. I'm glad I did it. I think I've been able to make some differences. I hope I was the right person at the right time for the challenges that came up. But after 8 years, not being a politician and so on, I think it's time for somebody else to move over and let somebody else do this. My wife is going to retire, and we have some plans, some things we'd like to do. I'd like to get my life back.
Really?
As to accomplishments, you know, I think that the legacy that I leave is not going to be one of big monuments and ambitious building programs. Unfortunately, the Financial Times just didn't allow for that. I think what I was able to do, along with the assistance of the council and our city staff, is to readjust the city to help set priorities and so on. We made quite a change in staff. We changed attitudes through our early retirement program, new city manager for new times. We've done all these studies to assess what are we going to have to do in the future. We're trying to do some planning programs So if anything, it's going to be, this is the moment where we step aside from business as normal and say, what can we do better? Where should we be going in the future? What are our priorities? What are our needs going to be? At the same time, we have tried to keep things going as normal. We made no cuts in our public safety. We got things like our radio, long-wanted radio system in. We built 2 new fire stations, although one is sitting unused because the growth has slowed. New fire training center.
And with that list of accomplishments, we have run out of the half hour of time with you.
Okay.
So I appreciate your being not only on the program today, but over the past 8 years as Mayor of Bloomington. Thank you very much, Mayor Steve Stockton. I appreciate it. And next week, we'll turn to the arts. Ra Joy, who is the Executive Director of Arts Alliance Illinois, will join us in 1 week.